Thank you for tuning in to the Catch a Lift Fund's Coach's Corner podcast. We hope you enjoy today's episode and will consider supporting the Catch a Lift Fund and the veterans we serve. Visit our website for more information about our programs at catchaliftfund.org. If you are experiencing a mental health crisis or suicidal thoughts, please call 988 or the Veterans Crisis Line 988, followed immediately by the number 1. The views and opinions expressed during the Coach's Corner podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of the Catch a Lift Fund. The Catch a Lift Fund does not verify or warrant the truth or accuracy of statements made during the podcast, and statements therein are not to be construed as an official policy or position of the Catch a Lift Fund. This podcast is provided for informational purposes only, and nothing herein should be construed as health, medical, or other professional advice. The Coach's Corner is a place for veterans to connect, heal, and share their stories. I'm Melissa Luke, the host of the Coach's Corner podcast. I am a U.S. Army Iraq War veteran, coach, and program director for the Catch a Lift Fund. The Coach's Corner is sponsored by ID Technologies. Welcome to this week's episode of the Coach's Corner. We've got another great episode for you today with Cal veteran athlete Tylor Holstein. Tylor is a U.S. Marine Corps veteran, Purple Heart recipient, husband, father, and so much more. Welcome to this week's episode of the Coach's Corner. Tylor, thanks for joining us. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. It's an honor to get to talk to you today. We've got a lot we want to cover. Let's jump right into it. Tylor, you joined the Marines after 9/11 when the world really changed for, so many people. Why did you make this decision?
9/11 happened. I was 14 years old, and I think like a lot of people from our generation felt compelled to do something. I mean, I was always a big history buff, and I remember reading stories about 14, 15-year-old kids going and fighting in World War II. And
right.
I mean, I was young when it happened, and just like I didn't understand the gravity of it, but when it happened, I knew that the world had changed, and I wanted to do my part, so rode my, after school that day, I was in 9th grade. After school, I rode my little Schwinn down to the recruiting station because I was kicked off the bus for fighting, and asked if I could join, and they told me to come back in 2 years to join the DEP program. So that's what I did, like now I had that goal, but yeah, that was it. I felt I had to do something.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely can understand that. Again, being, very similar age to you, and that strong call to service and that strong call to go and be a part of that fight. So you would enlist, you would join the Marine Corps, and you would be assigned to a unit that you described as full of legends and giants. Tell us about the leadership and culture shock when you were with this unit, when you got to them.
Oh, so I joined 3rd Battalion, 1st Marines after doing boot camp in the School of Infantry, becoming an 0311. And it was about 18 months after Operation Phantom Fury in November of 2004, which was the second Battle of Fallujah. They had the first one in April, and then it was ended for, you can do your research on it, but it was ended for political reasons and whatnot. And so it was about 18 months after, and I mean, that was the battle at the time. That was like our EWO,
Right.
And it still is that. And I think that, and then 3-5's deployment to Sangin in Afghanistan in 2011, I believe, are the two like pillars, that everybody looks at. But yeah, I mean, I had guys in that unit. My team leader was a guy, Jacob De La Garza. There's not enough adjectives in the American dictionary and English language to describe my feelings toward him, and just what kind of leader he was and man he is and was then. Very selfless, very caring, but he worked us, he took his job very seriously as our team leader. Like his job, as he put it, was to make sure that we came home, even if it meant he didn't care. He was just that type of guy. We also had guys like Sean Stokes. He passed away on my deployment, Silver Star recipient. He was, if I'm not mistaken, I believe he was the first private since Vietnam to receive the Silver Star, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Robert Barrickman, he was another guy. Him and another guy were I believe they were on the cover of USA Today during the Battle of Fallujah. Just someone snapped a picture of him.
Right.
And he would go on to be a huge, we had a great relationship. We helped each other a lot after service and stuff, but there was other guys too. I didn't get permission to use their names, so I don't want to. So the first Marine I met that I actually had a conversation with was he was Lance Corporal at the time, but he ended up being a corporal. It was Corporal Stokes, Sean, and they sent me in his room because he was an intimidating guy, and so they sent me in his room. They sent me into this room, right? My first night in the fleet. They sent me through this bathroom, because the rooms were connected by the bathroom. And I went in. It was pitch black in the room. I didn't know anybody was in there. And I'm just thinking, oh man, you know what I mean? Because you heard the stories about, your first night in the fleet, whatever, yada, yada, yada. And the light kicks on, like the little lamp. And he's like, what are you doing in here? And I was like, I was sitting here. Like, I don't know who you are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he just gave me some really good advice, that night, like how to survive being a boot in the Marine Corps. And then, we started our workup, and, we started our workup, did some really good training. And then our platoon started coming together. I believe it was after our Bridgeport training. Because my platoon was really, our whole battalion was heavy with guys from that 04 deployment, but my platoon in particular, it just felt like because I think there was originally 6 of us that got sent to that platoon as new guys, which is a small number in comparison to everybody else. And a lot of guys ended up getting moved to, second platoon or third platoon, just to even it out. Right. And we got some guys that came in, some boots that came in my drop, ended up coming to the platoon and stuff. And it just kind of, they evened it out across the company. And then that was it. We got our platoon sergeant, Staff Sergeant Hart, and he was another guy too who really, he made a major impression on me. Just the way he carried himself and the way he took care of us. He didn't care about what higher ups thought. Like if it was stupid, it was stupid to him.
Yeah,
he wasn't going to just do stupid stuff. And that would continue on through the deployment and even after, because you go on your deployment and then all these guys leave, right? And now new leadership comes in every deployment, and even after that deployment, he was a big part. Like I kept in touch with him. I still talk to him to this day. And a couple of the guys that ended up coming over to our platoon that weren't there originally were my buddy Kevin Key, and then Nathan Ripley. He's still in doing his thing. I think he's an MP now. He's in Virginia somewhere. But and we had just all formed up, the bonds started forming, and then, we leave April 10th, 2007, 20th birthday.
20th birthday, yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a heck of a way to have a birthday.
Yeah, right. Well, we left on a ship, so it wasn't too bad. Like we didn't fly over.
Yep.
We left on a ship because we weren't supposed to go to Iraq, and we all thought we were maybe going to go to Afghanistan just because of the way the workup was.
Right.
But then the surge happened in 07. That's when President Bush at the time just basically flooded Iraq specifically the Anbar province with people. And I can't remember the numbers, but it was a large number of people, Army and Marines, that they sent over. So they sent us over because I believe we were one of the most senior units in the Marine Corps at the time, just based on combat experience alone. So we made a couple stops. We stopped in Guam for a couple of days, which is really all you need to do. All you need to see Guam is only a couple of days. I mean, you could throw a rock from one side to the other. And then we stopped in Singapore, which was cool. We were there for a couple of days. Had a really cool, we did a couple cool things, like touristy wise. We didn't do any training or nothing. And then we got to Kuwait sometime in May, did our acclimation. And then flew from Kuwait to TQ, to Kadam Air Base. And we were there for a few days. And it's funny because I had like we all had old weapons, you know, the Marine Corps is. Guns, you know what I mean? So like my saw was really old, and they gave me a new one. And my buddy Key goes, "Oh, you're screwed now, buddy. You got a new weapon, bro. You're screwed." And I was like, "Ah, man, whatever." Right? So I think we started operations, I believe, on June 15th. Our mission, like the area we were going into, there hadn't been a U.S. presence there since 2004. So we're coming up on 3 years. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I mean, the Army would drive through it. They would drive through it on, I can't remember if it was an ASR or an MSR Lincoln. I think it was an ASR. And then our mission was to sweep down, basically clear IEDs, clear villages, whatever, and then get to Chicago, which was the main, I think it was north-south route through the Anbar province, basically connected Ramadi to Fallujah to Karma, because we were right outside the city of Karma. And 2-7 was in Karma, getting after it pretty heavily. So yeah, we were doing that, and then we were working with the tracks. You know, the tracks would stay on the hard ball. We'd be on line off the side, sweeping kind of ahead of them. And then it changed, and they started having us like do this leapfrog thing where like we would drive down on the hard ball, like however far, and then back sweep, and then drive and back sweep, which I don't know. I was a new guy, so whatever you tell me what to do, was basically what I do.
That's what you're going to do.
You know, later on talking to some of the senior guys, they were like, that was probably the dumbest thing we could ever done, because it just didn't make any, and looking back at it now, it didn't make sense for us to go drive ahead in an uncleared area to back sweep to where we, you know what I mean? So June 20th, the morning of June 20th rolls around, and it's just my squad, it's my fire team. We're in the command track, which is the admin track, I guess is what they call it, which has all the extra ammo. It's got it has all the extra ammo for all the tracks, has the tow bar on the top, and some other stuff in there. But I mean, the infantry's relationship with the trackers at this point, there is no difference. You know what I mean? Like there isn't that, oh, you're a pogue, you're not the infantry, you're garbage attitude, right? Because we had been working with these guys forever. Basically the whole workup, right? So we knew them, they knew us. And so being the saw gunner, you have to be you have to stand on the bench seat that's inside the track. And then you have your weapon up on top on the driver's side, because the gunner is on the left side of it. So if you're standing at the back of the track, the gunner's on the right side, driver's on the left side, and they can't, the gunner can't cover that side of the track because of friendly, So they put us up in the back, and we just stand on a bench, and I don't know, we started before, like right at dawn, we started our stuff for the day, which was just basic sweep and clear, you know? And then I switched out with one of the guys in the team. I went back up, to eat real quick. I went back up, and then you go, I'm sure you went through it, they have you do these classes where you look for identifying things, right? And the power lines didn't look right to me. It looked like they had been intentionally messed with to make us have to veer off the road.
That was one of the things, right? Something that's out of place for what it should normally be. And
and so I yelled down, and as I'm yelling into the track, hey, we need to stop and sweep. Boom. And all I remember is loud noise, white flash, and then
Right.
the next memory I have is Jacob, my team leader, shaking me by because we had the old school like open.
Yeah. Yep. That's what I had.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we didn't get the cool plate carriers, and he's shaking me, right? And I come out of it. They pull me out, and I don't remember anything for like 4 hours. My next memory is getting to the battalion aid station because the Army actually, from what I was told, an Army patrol came through, and they were in the, I can't remember what they were called, but they were in the bigger like IED resistant vehicles. It was kind of like a 7-ton. People are going to rip me apart for not knowing. I don't remember.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
Whatever, you know?
Yeah.
So I get of course they have the nice stuff, right? What I was told I did is I took one of their saws because my saw got destroyed and I tried to go back out. And they were like, no, get in the thing. You're getting evac. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the Army actually evac'd me out and took me to our battalion aid station. And then that's where my next memory is getting off that truck and Stokes and another guy. I didn't get his family's permission to use his name. But these two were there, right? And they took care of me the entire time I was up there, which was I believe it was about 5 days, maybe 6. Could have been as long as a week.
Okay.
But they took care of me. You know, Stokes made sure I got a sat phone to call home to tell them I was okay. Like they made sure I had a bed. Like, and I remember at one point I asked Sean, I said, hey, you know, Corporal Stokes, why do you care so much? You know what I mean? Like you don't work with me. Like it's different if you work with somebody.
Yeah.
You know, and he goes, well, you always, he goes, one, you're in my old platoon and I love your team leader talking about Del Garza. And he goes, and I just like you, you know, he's like, but it could have been anybody coming from our battalion.
Right.
Like anybody could have came in, but specifically from Lima Company, like we're going to take care of anybody that comes through here. You know what I mean? And that just showed what kind of people they were.
For sure. I mean? Yeah.
Like they didn't care. And I mean, you know, because Stokes left the battalion for a little bit because he was going to get out. And then he ended up going on a deployment. But, you know, he worked at the gym, so I would see him in there and we'd talk and stuff, right? Because it's a little different when someone's on their transitioning, getting ready to get out, as opposed to them still being in and them having to teach you and lead you and all that stuff. So, yeah, we had some really good conversations. And, so they ended up, you know, taking care of me. And then we were working with, you know, they were concerned that something was wrong with my brain because of the blast, right? Like I got hit with the TOBA on the back of the head and whatnot. But this is 07. I mean,
that I was going to say, I mean, brain injuries at that time, right? Like it's amazing they're thinking about it too, because I mean, it was not something that was looked at, right? Those invisible injuries of war.
Yeah. So they knew I had a concussion, so they were just basically waiting to make sure that I wasn't going to throw up on myself and my ears didn't start bleeding.
Right.
So once I told them I was good, it was kind of like, okay, let's get you back out type thing. So I went back to my platoon, whatever. And
what was that like, Tyler, to go back, you know, to your platoon, go back out, go back out in combat after that blast?
Oh, I mean, that's what, you know, that's what we're made for, right?
Yeah.
That's what Marines do, you know what I mean? And, it was great getting back to the platoon. The first person I saw was Steve Stacy. He came up, he gave me a big old hug, you know, and he was just like, hey, welcome back, dickhead. Like, don't die. You got to swim all the way, you know what I mean? And you know, and like I didn't have a weapon though, right? So I'm on this patrol with these guys coming back, right? Because they're doing a resupply patrol, and I don't have a weapon because my weapon.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that's crazy. Yeah.
Good times, right? Good times. But so I mean, I spent the night with our headquarters element, which was our company gunny, and then like his assistant, which was a sergeant at the time. I didn't get a permission to use his name. I'd like to, because that guy had a major impact on me. He knows who he is if he listens to this. He used to go by E. Don Evans. I can say that because this is basically his name spelled backwards. But So yeah, we went. I got back to the platoon, and we got right back into it pretty quick. It wasn't like a
Okay.
weird. There was no weird transition. Like they
Yeah.
had, the platoon had been doing work while I was gone.
Okay.
They got back. We were in a patrol base, and then we moved to a different house, a 3-story house, and yeah. So a couple days after we got back, we had another casualty. He got shot by a sniper. He survived.
Okay.
He got evac'd out, and then we moved again because we were basically at this point we had reached our destination, which was basically the intersection of Lincoln and Chicago.
Okay.
And so we moved houses again, set up another patrol base, sandbags, all that stuff, and then July 5th we lost Steve Stacy. He took a same sniper. I mean, this was the time too when they were using vehicle. They would knock down the license plate.
Okay.
And those guys, some of those guys could shoot, man, and they got him. And yeah, it still sucks.
Yeah.
Because Steve was the type of guy. I mean, he would give you the shirt off his back, and me and Steve didn't always get along. Our personalities didn't mesh. Steve got all the new guys in a lot of trouble and stuff, and we didn't mesh all the time. But we had an event before we left, and we talked and became, like cleared the air there. And then once we got on deployment, it didn't matter. Like the petty differences back home didn't
that
matter.
That stuff goes out the window pretty quick.
Yeah, and it was really deflating for everybody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because he was that guy, and that's when why the heck did I survive, right? Like, I mean, let's be honest, right? Like, I'm extremely lucky. Right.
Yeah.
The vehicle I was in ran over an IED, and the only thing that happened is my hearing is shot. My back is a little messed up because when I fell in, I fell on like one of the boxes they had. I fell right where my flak jacket ends, like right between that and the belt line. I landed on that. So basically, besides the bad headaches and concussion, and I mean, I'm suffering from it now, but at the time, I'm thinking nothing happened to me. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Nothing.
Yes.
Like I got a headache.
Yeah.
My ears hurt. Whatever. Right. But nothing happened to me. And now we lose Steve. And then a couple of weeks later, on July 30th, we lose Sean. Sean died, and the day before, or a couple of days before, because him and the other guy were the PSD for the tank men, and they always made it a point to come see us because both those guys came from 1st Platoon. And so we saw him a couple days before, maybe a day, 2 days before. But I remember on the day of, the day of Steve's, I remember my team leader saying something's off, right? Like he had a sixth sense, man. That guy had a sixth sense. And he's like, something's off. And I felt like it too. I think we all did because the market was empty. Like all the telltale signs.
Again, like something, something is not like it usually is here. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, everything. There was nobody in that marketplace. Nobody. And we knew. I mean, he got hit a couple, like, I don't know, probably about 300-400 meters down from the marketplace. But that, and then like the day that with Sean, I remember I was on post and we heard it, boom, because they stepped on a daisy chain. This is when they were daisy chaining them across the road. So they got out to sweep, and he stepped on it, and he took the full brunt of it, right? And we lost him, and that affected not only us new guys, but that affected these hardened dudes that we looked at like Supermen in a way that I had never seen it affect anybody. And they didn't let things affect them, right? But losing Sean affected them all, and it was rough. So after Steve, our platoon got pulled back to like where the company area was, because it was me, it was the other guy, and then it was Steve, like in pretty quick succession, getting
Okay.
hurt
Yep.
or passing away. And a little story about when Steve. So when Steve, he got shot through the neck by a sniper, and it hit him and went out the back. And that guy fought. I don't know how long it felt like it took forever for the medevac to get there, but he fought the entire time.
Yeah.
And then he was alive when they put him on the helicopter, right? And then I was told later, I don't know how accurate it is, but I had heard later that he passed away basically en route. Basically, they lifted off, and as soon as they started taking off.
Okay.
And I think he just stayed alive long enough for us so that we wouldn't have to carry him.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we didn't find out about it until later on that night. They pulled us all back. We went, and then my team leader's like, "This isn't good, dude. Prepare for that."
Yeah.
Right. Because he knew.
Right.
Like, he'd been through it enough. Jacob lost his entire fire team in Fallujah, so he knows what loss is like. And we get in the back of the 7-ton because we were up on an overwatch, so we were the last ones to come back. And we get on the back of the 7-ton, and no one's looking, everybody's looking down, and then that's when they tell me and the other 2 guys on the fire team that we lost him, and it was just like a gut punch, you know.
Right. Yep.
And I wrote I don't know, I felt compelled to say something to the family, right? So I wrote his little sister a letter, because he always talked about his little sister, always talked about her.
Okay.
So I just wanted to write a letter and let her know. So after that, we lost Sean a couple weeks later, and then we did some other stuff, and we ended up leaving, I believe, in October is when they finally pulled us out. We were only there for a real quick hitter, but it was pretty active. It wasn't as active as the 04 stuff they did, but it also wasn't like oh man, all we're doing is standing post type deployment.
Oh, for sure. Right. So yes.
It was kind of in the middle. It was
okay.
It was a good starter deployment, I think, for all of us. Yeah, and then we left and came back, and I ended up leaving. So we were coming back on the ships. We stopped in Australia, which was awesome. Good time. Probably not the best thing to allow all of us to go out and party.
Yeah, it's a pretty big culture shock from what you've just came from and experiences that you've just went through. Right. Yeah.
We were wild.
I'm sure, to put it mildly, I'm sure. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So then we ended up going to Hawaii, and they flew all of us back that had gotten, injured or anything. They flew all of us back a week early. So my homecoming was different from the rest of the battalions, and there was some guys already back because they were in, they got sent back to go to schools like squad leader course or whatever else. So our homecoming was a little smaller. My ex-wife had a baby in July. My oldest son, Xavier, he's 15 now. Had him in July. So in between losing Steve and losing Sean, he's born. And he actually, he shares a birthday with my team leader, Jacob.
Really?
Yeah. And then my middle son, Caleb, shares a birthday with his son in October.
Oh, that's incredible. Yeah. Yeah.
But we're stuck. I told him, I was like, dude, we're stuck with you. You're stuck with
me. Yeah,
you're
connected. You know what I mean? You're tethered together forever. So you're coming back to a very different life than what you left.
Yeah, 20 years old. You've got a 4-month-old son. And so I mean, spent time with him, doing as best I could, and I knew when I got back, like immediately when I got back. Maybe not immediately, I don't want to say immediately, but I knew that something's wrong.
Pretty soon after. Yeah,
I was drinking more. I was angry. I was, I was what I was, and that would continue for the next couple of years until I got out. And then I got out in 2009. It's crazy because you hear guys and gals talk about it. They're just like, one day you're there, you have something to do, you have a mission to do, and then the next day you're just home.
There's nothing, right? Yeah,
There's
it's all
nothing,
gone.
right?
What
And
was
this was back when, I mean, the temp and temps class, like from what I understand now is they completely revamped it. So like,
yeah.
Guys, hey, what are you interested in doing? They'll be like,
Right.
oh,
Yeah.
say woodworking, and then they'll send them to learn how to
Yes.
do
It's
woodworking
much
before they
different
get
now,
out,
right?
right? Back when I went into the temp and temps class at the theater at Mainside at Camp Pendleton. There was a good amount of infantry guys in there, and there's a fair mixture of Marines in there. And the guy gets up there and goes, he said like two jobs, like I think he said, who here is admin and who here is with involved with motor T, basically. For example, I don't remember the exact one he said. And about 3/4 of the room raised their hand, or a good portion of the room raised their hand. And he's like, all right, who's in the infantry? Well, the other, all of us rock biters are over here, and we raise our hand. And he's like, oh, you're nothing you do is going to translate in the civilian world. So then like 2 or 3 of us were like, well, then why are we here? Like, just sign our paper.
For
like,
real. Yeah. Let's go.
And so that's what he did. The guy just signed our paper and we left. So.
And so that's that fulfillment really, right? Of, one day you're there, got all this stuff going on. The next day it ceases to exist.
I remember the time I left because I actually looked at the thing. So I drove off base at 17:05. That's 5:05 in the afternoon for people that don't know military time. And I remember driving home just like, what am I gonna do now? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now what?
I mean, I took a couple months, spent time with my boy, and then because at this point he's over 2, and I hadn't really seen him that much,
right?
To be honest, so because I took my job seriously, like I didn't care, like especially when I was in charge of people, like it, and look, like looking back, I should not have been a team leader. I was not emotionally or mentally prepped for that at 20 years old, especially considering I needed to work through my own stuff. But hey, you do what you do, right?
Yeah, it is what it is there.
So I mean, I would if one of my guys called me, because cell phones still are kind of a new thing at this time. Shockingly, right? Like I didn't have.
Yeah, now it's hard to believe it, but right.
I didn't have a cell phone until the Marine Corps was like, go get a cell phone. You know what I mean? Like we have to have a cell phone to get a hold of you. So I remember Robert Barrickman actually took me to get it, one of my senior Marines. And so I mean, like I kind of drifted, tried to figure it out. The problem was I was still doing the same stuff I was doing, which was eating like an idiot and drinking a lot. Like my drinking increased a lot when I got out.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I mean, I knew something was up, right? So I went to the VA down in Southern California.
Okay.
In the San Fernando Valley. Went there, and I had a really good first experience with mental health treatment, right? But it was because I developed a connection with somebody, and I didn't. Oh,
that's such a big part of it. Yes, that's just crucial. Absolutely.
Well, the problem is I didn't understand how the VA works. So it was a student trainee, so she was only there for a year.
She was going to leave
her about 6 months in. So she tells me, about a month out, like, hey, like I got to leave in a month. I'm like, oh, whatever.
Devastating feeling of that. Yeah.
And she was like, well, I've met the person that's replacing me. I think you two would be able to mesh well together.
Okay.
Right? And I'm like, okay, well, you know what? We've developed this equity of trust. I trust you. Didn't happen. It was just, it was like oil and water. Like the way that she wanted, because look, I get it. Now I get it. Back then I didn't.
Yeah,
but
no, I understand that. Yes.
They have things that they have to, by the book type things, right? And there's some people that can deviate from that, and there's some people that can't.
For sure. Yep.
But at the time, and then now understanding like all the above pressures that come down on these providers, like I get it now why she was so boom, boom. Because I'm the type, like, and I told her, so there's some days I'm going to come here, I don't want to talk. Like, just ask me about how the week's going, right? Like, ask me how I'm doing. Like, I'm not going to want to talk, right?
Yeah.
I was having issues. I had a lot of guilt, and really I had a lot after So 2010, my team leader Jacob, because he stayed in the Marine Corps, he went to Quantico with a couple other guys, a couple other of my senior Marines from '04, guys that I love and care about, but I wasn't able to get their families permit or their permission, or in one of their cases, their family's permission to use their name. And so they went to Quantico, trained lieutenants or whatever. So I knew there was going to be a good crop of lieutenants for the Marine Corps because those guys were. But he ended up coming back. He ended up going to 1-5, and he was a squad leader at this point, and they deployed to Afghanistan. Well, like I said, he's the type that leads from the front. He doesn't let his guys do things right that he wouldn't do. And this was at the time when they were putting the IEDs in the walls, right? And they would put them, some of them at knee level, some of them higher, whatever. Well, they set this off, and it took off one of his legs. And that is like, again, like this guy who you know what I mean? Like this dude's my hero. And I get blown up. He gets blown up. He loses a limb. And like, so like I had all the guilt stuff. And plus I was, survivor guilt's a real thing. Like it's a real thing. Right. And all that stuff, just, it makes you question a lot. Like, why me? Right. Like, why me? Why didn't Steve come back? Why did I live? Why, why does, Dale get hurt? And I mean, for the most part, I mean, I didn't, right. And I'll never forget. So sorry, backtracking a little bit. So Staff Sergeant Hart, when I got back to the platoon and we had settled in and whatnot, he pulled me aside because they asked if, I don't know why they would even ask. They asked if I wanted a Purple Heart when I was up at the battalion aid station. I said, for what? Sorry for dropping an F-bomb, but I was like, for what? Like, what, why? And that was kind of it. And one of the docs was super cool, and the other one was kind of arrogant, right? Like, oh, I'm a doctor, whatever. Yeah. However doctors think, that's how he thought, right? And he pulled me aside, and Staff Sergeant Hart ripped into me. He was like, what are you doing? Is it true that you said this? I said, dude, I don't remember, right? Like there's a stretch where I don't, like my memory's in and out, right? Like there's a lot I don't remember about that 6 days. But I was like, but I don't think I deserve one. He goes, you are out of your effing mind, dude. Like, what are you talking about? Like this is going to affect you the rest of your life. Yeah, sure. You didn't lose an arm or a leg, which is what we all want, right? If we're going to get a Purple Heart, at least make it worth it type thing. You know what I mean? Not to make light of it, but that's kind of, at the time, it's just funny that I would think like that back then. But he was like, no, dude, your head is more important than any part of your body. And it's jacked up now permanently, right? And I'm glad he told me that, right? Like, I'm glad he cared enough to pull me aside and kind of give me a little spill. And the fact that he could even think of it back then in 07 when...
Again, it was very different. It was different.
Because I believe his Humvee ran over an IED too, because he was in weapons company on the Haditha deployment before mine. And I think he had a concussion too, like a really bad one. So he knew what was coming, you know what I mean? And so, 2010, 11, Dell gets hurt in 2010. And then it's kind of downhill from there. I mean, my marriage was already falling apart at this point. I mean, I don't know what we were doing. Like, we were white knuckling it through. We should not have been together. It was like oil and water. But hey, another baby pops up, right? So my middle son Caleb comes along. So now I got Xavier and Caleb, and those two little dudes, man, they kept me going for a long time. But I was hurt in 2011, 12, and then I became at this point I'm working odd jobs too, security. I worked on coffee machines, which was cool. I made coffee like from beans and stuff. Like, that was all cool, right? At a place down in the Santa Clarita Valley. It was cool stuff. I worked at a drug and alcohol rehab place, which was pretty rewarding. It was pretty fulfilling, right? Because you're helping people work through their stuff, and especially since I was having my own issues with drinking, right? I mean, alcoholism and all that stuff runs pretty deep in the fam on both sides, mom and dad, specifically mom's side. But I was exhibiting all the signs that you exhibit when you are having issues. Job for 3-4 months, I'm out of
Right.
here.
Yep.
Right. Not doing basic stuff like taking care of my credit, making sure all that stuff. You're like, I didn't care, because
Right.
I didn't think I'd be alive long enough. Like I figured either I was going to do it or something else was going to happen. Right. Like
Right.
I didn't. And I tried in 2012. Night of drinking. I love Jameson. I used to love Jameson. I don't drink anymore. I haven't drank since July because when I drink,
for you.
bad things happen. But yeah,
For
I
you.
mean, I don't even partake in one and like a beer at dinner, nothing. So it's kind of nice. It's actually really nice. I like it. Like I'm not an a-hole, right? If I
Right.
just drink
Yeah.
water. I'm an a-hole if I drink alcohol, right?
Yeah.
But I used to drink Jameson by the bottle, right? Because I work nights, so I'd get off, walk to the little liquor store, 7 in the morning, buy 2 fifths, and then go home, right? And so I would drink it by the bottle. And then this night I was bad, and I had a 45 and loaded it, put it to the side of my head, pulled the trigger, and nothing happened.
Mm.
And it
Oh my gosh.
scared people say, "Oh man, it scared me sober." No, I was crying.
Yeah.
Scared me sober, right? So I called a friend. I didn't get her permission to use her name.
Okay.
She knows who she is, but she drove up from San Diego. Well, I called Kevin Key, and told him what happened. He starts crying. I'm crying.
Right.
He's like, don't do nothing. I'm going to make a call because he was at state.
Okay.
Because it's funny because both of our ex-wives, they were friends growing up, and that's how I met her. So I blame him for having one divorce, But I also thank him for having the 2 kids.
Yeah, your 2 sons for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
So he calls a friend. She drives up.
Okay.
It's like 11 o'clock at night. We drive to the sheriff's station. I walk in. I got it in the case or whatever. I'm like, I don't want this. I just tried to kill myself.
Turned it in.
My friend's taking me to the hospital. I said, you guys can keep it for all I care. So I went to the hospital in the area I lived in, which is a really nice hospital. They had a on-site psychiatric unit, which oddly enough, I used to work in, right? Because I was a security guard at the hospital and I wasn't working there anymore. So I went in, checked myself in. I was in there for about 3 weeks and got set up with all kinds of good stuff. Like they didn't prescribe medication, which is one of the biggest knocks that the VA gets is they just try and throw meds at everything.
Yeah, keep pushing pills.
But back in 2010, 11, 12, I mean, they didn't know what would work. So could they have done it a little differently? Of course. But do I blame them for it? No, because I think they were playing catch up from the beginning, right? You fight 2 wars at the same time.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
You don't know what's coming back.
Yes.
And our healthcare as veterans is a lot better than civilian healthcare. Because I mean, I have through my wife and her job because she works at the VA, but their insurance, they don't have mental health facilities like that. The closest one to here, because I worked in a hospital that dealt with that stuff, and they have to send them out and stuff. The closest one to here that has one that will take you in the network that I've got is down in Fremont. And that's about, I don't know, an hour and a half, depending on traffic away. Because Bay Area traffic is, look, I've lived in both Southern and Northern California. Bay Area traffic crushes Southern California traffic and how crappy it is. Just want to throw that out there as a little jab, little poke. But no, so I go through the 3 weeks. I do great, right? I'm doing great. I feel great. Things are going good. And then I stopped following up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I got this.
Yeah, you think you're through it, and you can handle it.
But,
yeah. Well, you're not. So many of us can relate to that, right? That feeling. You start to come out of it a little bit, and you think you can do it by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You think you've got it under control.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I mean, I get that in my own way.
And I thought I had it under control at least 10 times. Well, let me tell you, I don't. You know what I mean? But I like to make fun of myself. It can't be too serious all the time.
This is true.
But yeah, so I did it, and then Key was my friend Kevin was really on me. Him and Nathan Ripley, the other guy I mentioned, they were really on me. All the guys that I mentioned were really on me, and keeping it's easy to make people think you're doing okay. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
we've
it
learned
is.
that because at this time too, from my God, from 2012, and we'll be generous and say 2015. I mean, I'm sure people listen to this have experienced. I'm sure you've experienced it. The rate of people checking out
Yes.
was
Yes.
just astronomical. I mean, it still goes on. I don't hear about it as much because I'm completely off. I mean, I have a Facebook, but
Right.
because I have to.
Yeah.
But I don't have Instagram. I don't have any of that stuff anymore. And one of actually the biggest, the only reason I got rid of it. One, I got rid of it because I saw the crap storm that was coming in 2016 and wanted no part of that political environment on social
Yeah.
media. But the biggest reason was I was getting sick of logging in every day and seeing another
Keep
friend
saying that.
or
Yeah.
somebody that I had met in passing, or I didn't even need to know them in passing, right? Like just the fact that my brother or sister knew this
Yes.
person and now they're hurting. Like
Right.
it was just, it got so overwhelming. So that's why I got rid of it. But I almost became one of them like three times before I came up to Northern California. You know, I mean, I tried. So the first time I tried shooting myself. The second
Yeah.
time I tried a mixture of pills and booze and didn't do it right because I'm not a chemist and I'm not the smartest person, right? So it didn't work. All I had to do was go get my stomach pumped, which was miserable, and then
Yeah.
I tried crashing my car, and it didn't work. You know what I mean? So I mean, there's just multiple things. At that point, I'm laughing. I'm not laughing at the fact that I tried to kill myself. I'm laughing at the fact that I thought back then. I'm like, well, clearly this doesn't work either. So I might as well figure life out. You know what I mean?
So
Like
what would,
that's how I thought. You know,
and praise God it didn't work, right? And that you're here with us, and
yeah, I'm very
you have
happy
your beautiful family now. But I mean,
yeah.
So many years of turmoil, not only for so many veterans that unfortunately still goes on, but like you said, 3 suicide attempts yourself. What would finally, really pull you out of that? What would the turning point be? And how would that help really push you forward?
So it was a combination of two things. So as I said, I had two young kids at the time.
Yeah.
And I grew up in an abusive environment. It wasn't conducive for a kid, right? Like it was pretty rough. And so I always said I didn't want my kids to grow up like that. Like I was going to do, if nothing else, if I do the exact opposite of what I had, then I figured I'd be good. Now it wasn't
Right.
I didn't get this abuse from the father, which a lot of people think you do as a young man, is you get it from your dad. My dad was amazing, loving, caring. If I could ask or change one, I mean, my dad passed away in 2020 from cancer, but I told him this, because I'm the type where if I need to tell you something, I'm gonna tell you, right?
Yeah.
I told him this years ago. I said the only thing I would change about my upbringing is the fact that you would have been around more, because my dad worked like 3 or 4 jobs to keep our lifestyle, keep our house, right, provide for me and my sister.
Yep.
And I can't knock him for that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because being a dad now, I get it, but that's the only thing I would change on his part. So my biggest thing was I didn't want to be that towards my kids. Well, I was having a bad day. They were being kids, fighting, and I spanked them. And I didn't go overboard. Like I didn't hit them with a belt or a switch or anything crazy. Like I just whop. Well, them being kids, they cried.
Yeah.
And I remember it hit me, boom. Okay. Like I'm repeating the exact same thing. And so my oldest was 6, my youngest was 3 or 4, probably 3, about to be 4. And I told him I'm never going to do this again.
Yeah.
Never going to do this again. And I haven't, I mean, I yell, right? Like I'm not perfect. I yell.
Yeah.
Right?
All right.
Hey, whatever. So there was that. And then, so the kids, right, looking at them and just the thought of somebody else raising them, right, being that dad figure was like, no. And then Berrickman went through a program up in Northern California, and I knew that it had helped him a lot. And because like I said, we were close. We helped each other through a lot of stuff. So those were the two things, but I didn't get in touch with Berrickman for a long time because I wanted to provide whatever. And so I became a truck driver, which my mental state at the time, I should not have been doing that because it deteriorated quickly because I was alone, driving different parts of the country. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. Yep.
And I remember man, I think I was back on a break. Something had happened. I can't remember if I think we lost somebody or something. Something happened. And I just called him. I said, dude, I can't do this anymore. Like, I'm at the end of the road. Like, it's either I need to get help or you're going to be reading about me on a Facebook memorial and reposting it every year, right? Like, that's where I'm at.
Yep.
So he said, can you give me a day? I said, give me a day. Okay. Let me call you in the morning. I said, all right, dude, I promise I'll make it tomorrow. And he called me 7:00 in the morning. He said, I'm going to text you the phone number. You need to call her at 8.
Okay.
You know, for a program up here in Northern California at the Martinez VA. So the lady's name was Debbie Chestnut. She was an RN, like the intake case manager for this program. And I called and left her a message, and she called me back, like within 5 minutes, I want to say. Called me back, and I talked to her for about an hour and a half, 2 hours, and just laid it all out, right? Like everything.
Yeah.
She said, okay, can you promise me to give you a day? And I said, okay, I'll give you a day.
Yep.
And then the doctor who runs the program, it's two doctors, Dr. Muir and Dr. Kixmiller. Dr. Kixmiller called me.
Okay.
And same deal, gave him the whole story, right? This is, I believe it was either the end of September 2015 or the beginning of October. And they were like, he was basically like, when do you want to come in?
Okay.
And I said, well, my son turns 5 in October. I want to stay for his birthday, right?
Yeah.
And he was like, okay, can you check in on the 20th of October? And I said, yeah, I can do that. And so that was it. I stayed, and then we went and did our, Barrickman actually drove me up because he was down at Disneyland, and he drove me up, and I came, checked in, and then started that whole process of being comfortable in my own skin and being okay, not being okay, and it was a process. I was in that program for, let's see, 8 months inpatient, and then 6 months outpatient in their transitional program. And then, did a lot of good work, had a lot of breakthroughs. Finally,
that's tremendous.
Was just like, you know what, let me, because we weren't really dealing with their whole approach was like, let's figure out what you're having issues with. Like, each person's treatment is tailored to them. Like, there isn't like an across the board.
It's not a cookie cutter.
But there was, we had groups, right? Yeah. Like Monday was our check-in group, and like we had 2 groups on Tuesday, which was, let's say, like mindfulness and anger management, and then Wednesday we had another check-in group, and like I can't remember what they called it, but it was like a dinner where one of us would cook dinner for everybody, right? And we would just all hang out together.
Yep.
With a couple of the staff members, whatever. And then Thursday was another pick your group, right? That they do. And then Friday was the checkout group. And during the week you have other stuff, right? So like we had a lot of time for ourselves, right?
Yeah.
So they kind of put the onus on you. Right, like they don't expect you at the beginning to be super like, let me do this, right? But as you go,
it builds.
There's an expectation that you're gonna go do.
Yeah.
Go to the occupational therapist, also known as the dog lady, because she had 2 service dogs. Her name's Carrie.
Nice.
Go to her and figure out something to do. Go to the rec therapist and go out on outings, because they would take you out, right? If you were able to. Because some guys, man, they're just not comfortable around other people. I'm not, but like I have to be, right?
Yeah, right.
Like I have to get comfortable going out. And so like you meet all these other people, and you start networking. And I remember I came up here, and within 2 weeks of being up here, I was like, I'm never going back down to Southern California again.
Yeah,
never. I'm not moving down there. I'll figure it out with the kids, right? And it was a hard decision because that's where my kids lived. You know, that's where my 2 kids live. But for me to be their dad, I couldn't go back down there, because I knew that if I went back down there, I'd fall right back into old habits of drinking and fighting people, and I'd probably be dead within 6 months. You know what I mean? And so I stayed up here. I did the outpatient program was cool, because like they put you up in an apartment rent free, like you figure your life out, right?
Yeah.
And then during this time, I met my current wife, Elaine, my guardian angel. Met her And, she had 2 boys from her previous marriage, and then I had
Okay.
my 2. So now we have a 15-year-old, a 14-year-old, a 12-year-old, an 11-year-old, and a 5-year-old.
Oh, that's
So we
tremendous.
had the 4, and
Yeah.
then we had our own going for the tiebreaker, hoping it's a girl, and we got another boy. So we got Xavier, Ethan, Caleb, Mason, and Jackson.
That's
And,
wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's still been times like it hasn't been all rainbows and roses, right? Like I'm not Dorothy running through that field, you know what I mean? But
well, none of us are, right?
in 2019, I had a pretty major setback in the summer. It was pretty bad, and tried killing myself there too. But I don't remember any of it. Like I wasn't there, right? Like because I was working. I did the usual routine, right? Like, oh, I'm good, right? Like I got this, right? So I laugh about it because looking back, like I'm just like, dude, what are you doing, right? So 2017 started working an actual real job, right? Like a real job that paid real money. That it was cool, right? Like I enjoyed my job, but it was in an area where there's a lot of things that could be triggering, right? There's violence, there's shootings, there's kids, child abuse, woman abuse, like just all bad. Drug overdoses, car accidents. This is the gambit, right? So you're seeing stuff, you're dealing with people, it's just, and I had started focusing more on my work because in my head I need to provide for my family, right? So I stopped I started not going to treatment.
Yeah.
And in 2019, it exploded.
Yeah.
And it was rough. But I went back into that program and, when I was in there the first time, I went across because like the building we were in on the VA campus, like across the parking lot or across the street was the mental health building. So I went over there and I started working with a lady named Tracy. And so I kept working with Tracy and then I started tapering it off. And then when I went back in the second time, because how I said it was all tailored, I strictly was working with Tracy across the street. Like that's what my focus was. I didn't have to go to anything else. Like it was go to your, I think I was going there twice a week, maybe 3 times a week, but I would still go to the other groups and check in and stuff. But I wasn't able to like engage with treatment with a student trainee or anything because it was strictly focused on the mental health PTSD stuff over across the street. So I've done every treatment you can do. The only one I haven't done is the new one, the tapping.
Yeah.
But I'm working on it. I'm trying to get that one on the list of stuff. But so since 2019, I've been just staying active as much as possible. I mean, there's still times where I'll slip and I won't be as involved, but then when I start noticing, I instantly I'll email one of them on My Healthy Vet and just be like, hey, appointment, what I mean? And
I gotta get in.
Call.
Yeah.
So then they'll call and be like, when can you, because they know my work schedule's pretty busy. So they're like, when? And I'll tell them and then,